Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf. I'm joined by Minna Stein and Riley Fessler, or as I like to put it, Riley Fessler and Minna Stein. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad.
Well, thanks. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. Minna, start us off.
All right. A U.S. judge, Sarah Ellis, has tightened oversight of President Trump's immigration crackdown in Chicago, ordering Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bavino to appear in court daily and to personally wear a body camera after he was filmed using tear gas on protesters. Ellis criticized federal agents for using excessive force, such as firing tear gas in residential areas, including near children, and demanded that the government release all reports and body camera footage related to such incidents. The lawsuit, filed by protesters, journalists, and clergy, accused Trump's administration of violating constitutional rights, and the judge has refused the Justice Department's request to pause her strict monitoring order.
Well, there's more and more of this is gonna happen because, as you may or may not have noticed the other day, the administration has decided to shift more of the responsibility for immigration enforcement in the United States, or what it calls immigration enforcement, which is something more than that and is much more abusive, to the Border Patrol. And the reason they want to shift it over to people from the Border Patrol is the perception is they are much more inclined just to follow orders. They are much Trumpier in their attitudes than other agencies that are involved in this. And they're much more likely to help them hit the very high quotas that have been set by Stephen Miller, something like 3,000 arrests a day. And, there are people like this guy, Bovino, who are just creeps. Whether they follow this, and if they don't follow it, how the judge enforces it is going to be a story to watch. And everybody can play a role in this. If you see somebody abusing their power as a federal agent, video it, post it. We live, thanks to new technology, in a nation full of witnesses. And we can bear witness in a way that actually helps protect the rights of one another.
President Donald Trump and South Korean President Lee Jae-myung finalized details of a trade deal in Gyeongju, under which South Korea committed to a $350 billion investment in the U.S. The investment is structured as $200 billion in cash installments and $150 billion for shipbuilding projects, with both sides agreeing to a 50-50 profit split. Separately, Trump expressed optimism about his impending summit with China's Xi Jinping, suggesting he would reduce tariffs in exchange for a Chinese commitment to curb fentanyl precursor chemical exports. The president dismissed an earlier North Korean missile test, maintaining his focus on trade talks, while President Lee gave him a lavish welcome and requested U.S. consent to reprocess nuclear fuel.
Yeah, it wasn't by just the way a lavish welcome. They gave him Korea's highest honor. What he did to deserve that, I do not know. But you know what else they gave him? No, silence. A golden crown. Days after the No Kings protest, Korea gave him a crown. Really, this is pandering of the worst sort. These deals, of course, are not deals. A lot of the parts of the deals aren't enforceable. They're also kind of outrageous. I mean, first of all, giving the Koreans a break of putting them down at 15% tariff. Why should they be paying any tariffs? 15% is much higher than they were paying before. So this is still part of Trump's alleged revenue generation scheme. But of course, as we know, the people who generate the revenue, the people from whom it is generated, are you and me. So it doesn't penalize Korea down at 15% because it's not really enough to disrupt the trade. It penalizes us. Meanwhile, there are these commitments for these deals in which, Trump is acting as if he's sort of an owner of these various companies. But he's also put the United States in this very strange position where we're like more communist than the communist countries, where our government is like, hey, invest in this, we're going to own this, we're going to have a 10% piece of that, give us a slice of this other thing. They're picking winners. They're picking winners. That was absolutely verboten at the height of whatever the most lefty Democratic administration you may think of the past 60 years. You don't pick winners in a free market economy. That's what Trump is attempting to do. Given his track record, we should all be a little bit upset. You know, the guy who's picking winners went bankrupt 6 times. But, you know, that's why you've got wonky deals that can't be enforced, that only hurt individuals, that make Trump feel powerful, give him, you know, some kind of action on the side. We're never sure what that is, and don't help anybody. Wow, that doesn't sound good. Change the subject, Minna.
Hurricane Melissa made landfall in southwestern Jamaica as a Category 5 storm with winds of 185 miles an hour, tying the record for the strongest Atlantic landfall by pressure and wind speed. The storm caused widespread destruction, leaving hundreds of thousands without power, flooding hospitals, and devastating parishes like St. Elizabeth and Clarendon, with officials warning of catastrophic wind damage, flash flooding, and storm surges up to 13 feet. Ravaging Jamaica, Melissa was forecast to move towards Cuba, the Bahamas, and Bermuda, weakening slightly but remaining powerful, while experts cited it as another alarming example of climate change intensifying hurricanes in the Caribbean.
I don't know what you're talking about. The President of the United States and his senior advisors have told me that climate change is fake.
Oh, you're right. My bad. Scratch that story.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, this is fake. It's probably fake news. You know, sadly, of course, for the people of Jamaica and Cuba, and then the Bahamas, and then Bermuda, the devastation will be very real. Not sure whether the U.S. will step up and do what it should. We're only going to learn about what the real devastation is in more remote communities over the course of the next several days. The prognosis is not good. But, you know, as Minna pointed out, because she was actually telling the truth, the prognosis for more storms like this is not good. There's, you know, we because of man-made climate change, are entering a period in which catastrophic storms will happen more frequently and be more catastrophic. In all likelihood, if we don't take the steps that we ought to be taking for the rest of our lives. And remember that. Remember that when you see the Trump administration saying yes to more fossil fuels and no to solar energy or to wind energy. Did you notice, guys, by the way, the other day that our Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., has undertaken an important new study to determine whether wind farms cause cancer?
Asking the important questions.
So much of this administration is like related to windmills, wind energy, like...
Yeah, no, Trump has a wind issue. I don't know what it is. And, you know, there are a lot of jokes I could make there, and I'm not going to make them because I am a dignified person. But
very mature.
Thank you. Thank you, Minna. I totally understood the tone of what you were saying. But, you know, I mean, he's got this whole thing that windmills are killing birds and so on. And it's like, you know, his fossil fuel friends said, we don't want to spend a lot on alternative. And then he said, well, what's a good reason not to? And somebody said, well, you know, there was a bird I found. And he just, like, didn't do any more research and has just decided to make that into a thing. But one of the, you know, among the things that HHS is looking at is whether, you know, one of the things associated with, maybe this is looking into solar power also as its health defects, was whether people could be negatively affected by solar radiation, which, by the way, is sunlight. But, you know, hey, blazing new trails here for science, you know, based on the guidance of the former heroin addict with a brainworm. Riley, I know he's your favorite cabinet member, Riley. I don't mean to pick on him.
He is my favorite, as you well know.
Well, no, I know. And Minna's favorite is
Marco Rubio.
DHS. Oh, I thought it was DHS Barbie, but okay, whatever. I thought it was Christy Note.
It's a tie.
It is a tie. And you also, as a former Floridian, you can also claim Pam Bondi.
Oh, you're right.
We're spoiled
So
for
many-
choice.
Yeah.
I know. So many Floridians to choose from.
Yeah, so true. All right, Riley, what do you got?
Israel conducted heavy overnight strikes across the Gaza Strip, killing 104 people, including 46 children, marking the most severe challenge to the tenuous October 10th ceasefire. Prime Minister Netanyahu stated he ordered the strikes after accusing Hamas of violating the truce by handing over partial hostage remains and killing an Israeli soldier in Rafah, a claim Hamas denied. Donald Trump defended Israel's actions, saying the country was justified in striking back after the soldier's death, while Hamas delayed the return of another hostage's body in response to the bombing. The intense escalation complicated efforts to move toward the next phases of the ceasefire, which address thornier issues like Hamas disarmament and the future governance of Gaza.
It's not really a ceasefire if one side, with the support of other nations, can violate it anytime it wants, for any reason it wants, and say that it's justified in doing so. It's also not solving the underlying problems when the Israeli response is, well, you may or may not have killed one Israeli soldier, so we then feel free to kill 100 Palestinians, including 40 children. That's the underlying calculus that led us to this catastrophe in the first place. Is Hamas totally in the clear? Of course not. Hamas is a terrorist group, and they're terrible, and they do terrible things. But the concept of a ceasefire, the concept of a lasting peace, is oh so tenuous here, and seems very unlikely to endure for a long time. Minute.
The paramilitary Rapid Support Forces seized the key Darfur city of El Fasher after an 18-month siege, prompting Sudan's Army Chief General to order troop withdrawals and sparking fears of mass killings and ethnic targeting. United Nations and human rights researchers, including Yale's Humanitarian Research Lab, say satellite imagery and witness reports show summary executions, piles of bodies, and attacks on civilians and hospitals, while displaced residents and local groups report large numbers of deaths that cannot yet be independently verified. The takeover marks a potentially decisive and tragic turning point in Sudan's civil war, drawing condemnation from the EU, African Union, the UN, and World Health Organization amid mounting humanitarian and protection concerns.
Concerns, a lot like thoughts and prayers. The reason that we encounter genocide on a regular basis is that people are predisposed towards it. We came through the 20th century. We saw genocide not just in Europe during World War II, but Armenian genocide, Cambodian genocide, genocide in the DRC, genocide in Rwanda. This is common. All the genocides have one thing in common. The rest of the world does nothing. And Sudan is a catastrophe. In many respects, it's much worse than the catastrophe that's happened in Gaza. And there's no, why compare genocides? Both are hideous failures of civilization. But you don't see the West stepping up. You don't see countries of the UN saying, we're going to go in and stop this. And until there are active forces willing to challenge the actions of sovereign leaders and warlords and others who feel that they can act with impunity, this is going to continue. You don't get rid of genocide by signing conventions against it. You get rid of it by using force against the people who are committing it. And we're not there yet as a planet. There was one bit of good news yesterday. Donald Trump said en route to Korea that apparently the Constitution, this is news to him, I guess he just made his way to the 22nd Amendment in his reading of the Constitution, makes it impossible for him to run for a third term. So he's disappointed, but he's not going to be able to run for a third term. All I can say to that is, of course, we predicted that right here because, of course, the Constitution, and of course, Father Time is undefeated, and of course, he took a cognitive test and found it difficult, which, should point everybody's attention to the reasons he would find a cognitive test difficult. But Donald Trump is a lame duck, and it doesn't get said enough in the news. He's over. The big question for America is what comes next? Who comes next? How Trumpy is what comes next? How MAGA is what comes next? Is there a chance to reset and undo a lot of the damage that's been done? I don't know the answer to those things. But certainly Trump effectively announcing that he's a lame duck is at least something that creates a glimmer of hope that we can set the ship right. Anyway, obviously we'll be covering that here. We're going to talk about Trump and his trip to the region in Asia on our Deep State Radio podcast later today. We did a great conversation with Alondra Nelson, a former acting director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy in the United States yesterday on AI. And even if you don't listen to Still Consciousness all the time, and a lot of people in the AI world do, I would strongly urge you to listen to that. She really sheds some light and speaks some truth about what we're doing here in this country, what we should be doing, what AI may look like in the future. Excellent, excellent podcast. And of course, we've got all our other usual podcasts coming to you daily and later in the week. We encourage you to listen to them. If you like them and you're watching on YouTube, show that you like them, or subscribe or follow us on Instagram, or go to the DSRnetwork.com, click on membership, and help us out for a couple bucks a month. If you haven't done it yet, why not? We make a difference here for tens of thousands of people every single day, and have been doing it for 10 years. So I think our track record demonstrates that we are committed to having you be exposed to experts who will tell you the truth and what's really important in ways that you can't hear about it or see discussions on other platforms. So join us. Until tomorrow, thank you, Mr. Fessler. Thank you, Minna. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.